The original Hotline Miami is probably my favorite indie game ever made, so as you could guess, when I started the sequel I was super excited, but I also had pretty high expectations. As the title reads, I'm very conflicted on this game. Playing it, there's a lot to dislike, but I took away a lot of interesting stuff from the game. Anyways, let's take a look at Hotline Miami 2 Wrong Number. So I'm not gonna go over all the different game mechanics and such, since I already did that in my review of the first game that I'd recommend watching if you haven't already. Anyways, the combat was the highlight of the first game for me, and based on what I had seen of the sequel, I was really interested to see how the developers could build on the already great system. And, well, they didn't really that much. I mean, there's some new smaller things, but when it really boils down to it, everything is rather similar. Which, I mean, isn't bad. I didn't want a huge change to combat, I suppose. It was just a little underwhelming. Now, about the only big change to combat is the player character. Hotline Miami 2 follows many different individuals throughout the main game, and each one usually plays very differently. This, at most points, I actually really enjoyed. Certain characters forced me to change up my playstyle and I didn't mind. Some did feel a little gimmicky and annoying, like one dude who refuses to use guns, but then others felt really genius, like one guy where you quickly switch in between melee and gun combat with the tap of a single button. So yeah, as a whole I was underwhelmed with the combat. It didn't feel very innovative apart from the characters I just mentioned, and a few new masks I suppose, but even some of the new mechanics did not turn out, like the dodge roll or the dual wielding of guns. But the combat wasn't actually the thing that was most disappointing about the game. That would easily go to the level design. Oh man, do I have some complaints with the stupid levels in this game. The first Hotline Miami revolved around fast-paced trial and error gameplay that had you dying a lot, but quickly respawning and making it a bit farther each time until you finally got to the next checkpoint. Usually, at the longest, a level would take about 15 to 20 minutes. There were multiple levels, about the same length, that took me over an hour in Hotline Miami 2. Now, say what you want that I'm just bad, but I will stand by that the level design in some of these levels is just horrendous. At least the first game felt relatively fair, but half the levels in the sequel feel like the developers just didn't know what to do, so they slapped glass everywhere and called it a day. The levels in the original usually consisted of rooms linked together with doors and glass, and other stuff was thrown in by the end of the game to make it a little trickier. But Hotline Miami 2 has all these huge, sprawling levels full of enemies everywhere, so half the time when you make a move you get sniped by some random guy you can't even see on your screen. It was just incredibly frustrating, and I honestly don't have any desire to play some of the harder levels again. As a whole, if you couldn't tell, I was rather disappointed with the gameplay, but don't dislike the video yet. There was for sure some redeeming qualities. The animation and brutality is kicked up to another notch from the first, which I didn't even know was possible. Both in cutscenes and gameplay, death is pretty slick. I swear I'm not a serial killer. The point system brings back the amazing sense of urgency that makes you once again think super quickly and really tests your ability to react when things don't go as planned. The music, well, not as good as the first in my opinion, still keeps the same vibes and I loved it. The entire style of the first game is enhanced with the awesome fonts and neon colors. But I don't know, I'll always hold a special place in my heart for the Russian title screen of the original that initially made me think I bought the wrong game. But if there was one rather surprising, very redeeming aspect of Hotline Miami 2, it would easily be the story. The story in the original wasn't particularly something I cared for, or if I did, I never really understood it. It was, of course, enough to keep me in for the entirety of the game, but it wasn't ever the center of my attention. But the sequel essentially flipped that completely over. The entire situation between these two games honestly reminds me a lot of The Last of Us. I mean, I love the first game for its story, but definitely thought the gameplay could use some improvement. Then, I kinda thought part 2 was majorly disappointing, except for the gameplay, which was rather basic in retrospect, but still super fun. Anyways, there's really no point in me trying to explain the story of Wrong Number, because it is kinda all over the place. With so much happening at once, it was hard to understand until a second playthrough. But once I had scoured the Hotline Miami wiki for multiple hours, and everything came together, it's really incredible. The way all the separate storylines in Hotline Miami 2 ties into each other is genius and super engaging, not to mention its subtle but very interesting connections to the original and Jacket's character once you pick up on them. I've come to appreciate the interconnecting storyline of both Hotline Miami games in a much more significant way than I honestly ever would have imagined after playing the sequel. The characters are unique and feel pretty real, not to mention the overarching themes are really incredible. So I do advise anyone who didn't really understand much of what was going on in either game to do some research and really understand the beauty of the world of Hotline Miami. And, well, I'm not sure of much else to say. Hotline Miami 2 Wrong Number is really a one-of-a-kind experience that is kinda painful to get through at points, but very rewarding if you stick it out. I'll give it a B. Thanks for watching, everyone. Please make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and I'll hopefully see you all soon in another video. Bye.